Matthew Stafford opens up on staying with the Rams, and he also had some very interesting comments about the Rams potentially drafting a quarterback on Thursday. Will the Rams take a QB? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor, join the party, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit the like button. Very close to 17,000 subscribers. Drop some comments down below. Do you want to see the Rams draft a quarterback in this draft? My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've covered LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Bleacher Report, SI, Dodgers Nation. As always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's episode, we've got storylines that you need to know entering this Thursday's NFL draft. Will the Rams draft a quarterback? Will they trade back? And then also, Matthew Stafford opened up about re-signing with the Rams and also has some interesting comments about the possibility of the Rams drafting a quarterback. So we'll start with his comments on basically saying that he never wanted to leave. And he said about the contract situation, of course, he wasn't a free agent, but he needed an adjustment on his deal to continue here without very much guaranteed money. He said it wasn't something that happened on that Friday during that meeting. It's not one thing that sits there and goes, hey, this is the reason. There's one thing that makes me want to come back. There are so many positive things about our organization, about our team. I never really wanted to leave. I'm just happy to be back and happy that the Rams want me back. We can move forward and hopefully have a great season. So by the sound of it, it doesn't seem like he was close to leaving. I don't know if it's like a Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street situation. I'm not effing leaving. I don't even think it was even that dramatic. You know what I mean? I don't think it even got anywhere close to that.
No, I don't either. And this is why when, let's kind of back it up the last couple of years. Like you go back 2 off seasons ago and you and I were talking about this. And I said, look, they're going to figure this out. I'm not worried about it at all. And they got it done on the last day. And it was just kind of keep it moving. And then this most recent off season, it was more of a, I think they're going to work it out. I wasn't quite as positive as I was the year before, but when you kind of get the benefit of some time and some hindsight, it really does make a whole bunch of sense that he's going to stay. Because, and the biggest thing is the most obvious thing. Where was he going to go that was going to set him up better? And the answer is there wasn't a spot. There wasn't a spot that made a lot of sense. There wasn't a spot that was going to give him an opportunity to win and make the most money possible. That maybe here in Los Angeles wasn't the biggest pile of money, but is a pretty big pile of money. Matthew Stafford's already made roughly, I think it's something like $300 million. So I get that you want to be paid what you're worth. I understand that there's a level of respect that comes along with the money, but Matthew Stafford, for not one single second in his tenure here in Los Angeles, and not one single second that I ever read in Detroit, was him being about the money first. He's been about the football first. He's been about the opportunity to win first. The reason that he left Detroit in the first place was because he wanted to go somewhere and have a chance to win, which he's done here, which he will continue to be able to do here. So, that he wanted to be here is not a huge surprise. He's got a great coach. He's in a great city. He's got a good team. He's got a team that's committed to winning and that the window, stays open about as perpetually as you could reasonably hope for in the NFL. And that's a pretty good setup for a quarterback. And, of course, there's the Sean McVay factor.
Absolutely. I think that's the best point to me is the Sean McVay factor, the Rams organization factor. I think it's a testament to the foundation of this organization where you don't have a guy like Matthew Stafford that is looking to jump ship, even though that their roster wasn't completely intact at that point as far as where he thought the direction of it was going. Cooper Kupp, him wondering, okay, what's his future? Going out there, getting Devontae Adams, solidifying the offensive line. He said that Alaric Jackson is a beast, so clearly he approves of that re-signing. But he also kind of just talked about the idea of looking around and possibly being traded. Stafford said, I think anytime those kinds of things come up, you're doing due diligence and looking around. I'm a fan of the NFL. I know a lot of these coaches, a lot of these players, a lot of the teams in some of their situations. You poke your head around and see what's going on. Wanting to be back with the Rams was my number one priority, and glad that that worked out, so I don't have too much to worry about it. So it kind of almost reminds me of like a college program. Like I think I saw recently, like Ohio State had 0 players in the transfer portal, right? And that's because how good Ohio State is. Probably, they play their players at NIL. You get your players to the NFL. It's like Matthew Stafford did not jump into the transfer portal, right? He did not do that. He didn't pull a Nico Iamaleava who transferred from Tennessee to UCLA, right? He didn't pull that. He stayed with a great organization, the Rams.
Well, he didn't do a Nico because he actually got more money to where he went as opposed to getting less than where he previously was. So that's a whole nother issue for another day. But I think you're right. And I like the comparison that you talk about, he did his due diligence and looks around. This is what the Rams have aced, just like you were talking about with Ohio State a second ago. Go ahead, look around, see what else what better is out there. And the answer is not much. Are there other great spots? Sure. Are there places to go that are wide open that would give you an opportunity to go do more here? Not really. And so you put those two things together where you have one team that's created this culture to where things work. And our everydayers have heard me say this a million times, but I think it's incredibly important. Competency is a compliment. The Rams are competent. They have a team president that is competent. They have a general manager that is competent. They have a head coach that is competent. They have a coaching staff that is competent. That's not true everywhere. You got to look at Nico Harrison in Dallas, right? Their incompetence is actually kind of sort of common in a lot of these leagues. And Matthew Stafford is a smart guy. He looked around and said, well, maybe there's a little money over there. They don't know what they're doing. Maybe there's a little more money over there. That window's not open right now. This is a combination of all of these great things. Go look around. We're going to get close to the deal. And they did, but it's the culture that they've built. It's the ability to know that going into this, that they're not going to trick it off out of stupidity. It might get tricked off because of bad luck. It might get tricked off because of bad play, but it's not going to get tricked off because somebody's dumb in the room. The Rams just don't do that.
Exactly. 100%. I think that's something that this organization has. And I think too, they don't get desperate or emotional or they don't panic when a player like Matthew Stafford goes out there, and who knows what he did. I think, honestly, Travis, the thing that I'll remember most from the Matthew Stafford offseason quarterback saga 2025 was NFL insiders having disagreements and going at it when it was Jordan Schultz and Rap Sheet disagreeing about what he was doing in Montana. Was he really meeting with Tom Brady? Did he go to his house and all that? So that's kind of what I'll remember from it. And I think that it really says that the Rams aren't afraid of those situations because they know what they have built.
Well, I think you're right. I think that's one of those when you're confident and when you know your stuff works and you know that your stuff is going to be there no matter what, you can give a player like Matthew Stafford the ability to say, go look, and not in like a threatening, menacing way. Like, yeah, go ahead and see what else. It's like, dude, go ahead and look around. You're going to come back here because you know that this is the best spot to be. And that's a very powerful position to be in, to where you know that you can let another guy look under the hood in some other places, and they're going to come back to you because your stuff works better than theirs does.
100%. And I think this will get us to the next segment, is his comments about the Rams the possibility of the Rams drafting a quarterback on Thursday.
Yeah.
Stafford said, to me, I'm worried about doing everything I can to be the best version of myself for this team. Whoever we draft, I hope they come in and help our team win. You look at it last year, our first 2 picks were guys on defense that made huge impacts on our team. So for me, I'm just trying to load this team up with as many good players as we possibly can. If a quarterback comes along and they feel the need to take him, you'll welcome him with open arms and try to teach him as much as I possibly can. So basically, the anti-Brett Favre response to drafting a quarterback. Now, is he just saying things? So I think Matthew Stafford is one of the best at just saying things that sound good and come off as really well said. Is that how he truly feels? I think that's a discussion we'll pick up in the second half. And also who they should draft. Should they draft at the 26? Should they draft back? We'll pick that up in our storylines for the Thursday NFL draft that you need to know. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game where every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels absolutely huge. Let's go ahead and throw hockey in there as well, right? It's electric in the arena. And with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting, which nobody really loves. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when the demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down the closer you get to the beginning of the game, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%, right? And here's the thing that I love most of all. All-in pricing means that there is no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. How many different times have you said, oh, okay, I like that price, I like that seat, and you start going through the process, then you get to the end, you're like, well, that's not even close to what we were talking about. Not with Game Time. All-in pricing, no surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you hear podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a big shout out to those every listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode, watching every episode, Monday through Friday. And if you're new to the podcast, new to the YouTube channel, we got a lot of new viewers, new listeners recently. So now's the time to join the Every Listeners Club. You got the draft coming up, you got a big season coming up, and then you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. All right, Travis, here in the second segment, we're going to pick up on the conversation about will the Rams draft a quarterback. I think kind of just getting back to the Matthew Stafford thing, I actually do feel like he's kind of the dude that would kind of like pay it forward as far as, hey, if he kind of sees a guy coming in here that I think he respects, that he thinks has a chance to make it in this league. I mean, I think he's someone that just leading by example, you can absorb things from. But I do think that he's someone that is a made man, where it's not like he hasn't won a Super Bowl. It's not like he hasn't been on top of his game. I think the fact that that exists, I think makes it more likely that he would embrace just nurturing a quarterback of the future for the Rams.
Yeah, it's complicated, D-Mac. I think that there's a lot that goes into it. I think a lot of it depends on where this mystery quarterback that we're talking about, where does he get drafted? Because I think especially a player like Matthew Stafford, and I think quarterbacks in particular, the level of competitiveness that these guys have is off of the charts. It's really hard for regular folks like you and me to kind of think about what it is. Because it's like, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. There's another guy in the room. It may or may not bother you, but it's like, okay, let's just keep it moving. These guys don't operate like that. They are competitive to a level that is almost pathological. So if there's another younger guy in the room that at least theoretically is there to take their job, that's something that could create a whole bunch of stuff. But I do think that can be mitigated to a relatively large degree, depending on where it is. And I think this is, and look, I'm not an Aaron Rodgers fan necessarily, but I think the Aaron Rodgers thing, for lack of a better word, when they drafted Jordan Love wasn't that they took Jordan Love, it's where they took Jordan Love. Had they taken a quarterback later in the draft and gotten him some pieces in that spot that could have helped him, and the quarterback of the future was actually down the line in the future, then you can kind of embrace that role. I think, listening to Matthew Stafford's quotes, that's kind of what I'm hearing, which is, look, let's load this roster with as many good players that can help me, that can help this team this season right now in 2025. And, oh, by the way, if you want to get a quarterback that's going to be your guy in 2029 or 2028 or whenever he's ready, and I'm fishing or playing golf or whatever it is that he likes to do, then great, I'll help that guy. But to get somebody ready for next year, the year before, at the expense of doing something that's going to help me today, that's a little bit tricky. And I kind of get it. I understand the impulse with hey, look, we need a cornerback. We need a tight end. We need another wide receiver. These are things that are going to help us this season. It's the difference between winning 12 games or 10 games or whatever it might be. The quarterback of the future, I get zero benefit out of that. The flip side of that's also true. The organization has to make that decision based on, I know that doesn't help you, but it does help us. It helps us get ready for 2028 and 2029 and beyond. And the job of Les Snead and this team is to make sure that the team never goes bad, which is really hard to do, but it's a tricky little putt. And that's why if you can find a quarterback later in the draft that, you kind of say, that's our guy, but he's just not our guy today. I think that kind of serves both masters at the same time, but it's a tricky situation, and I can see it from both sides.
Yeah, and I think that's when you bring that up, I think that's the best point where it's, okay, where do they actually draft this quarterback? Because if they drafted him with their 26th pick, or they moved up a little, or they got someone with a premium pick, then you would say, okay, if I'm Matthew Stafford, well, then maybe I'll invest some more time. If it's a quarterback that's later in the draft, a Will Howard, a Kyle McCord, a Tyler Shuck, someone like that, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, yeah, I mean, he has the chance to maybe be the guy, but I'm not going to invest that much time and effort in taking this guy under my wing when I'm not for sure that they really envision him to be the quarterback of the future. If you take a guy at 26, you think he has a chance to be a long-term solution at the position. If you take a guy later, it's a wild card type of pick that, okay, maybe he's a backup, maybe he's someone that takes over for Jimmy Garoppolo as a backup, or Stetson Bennett or something like that. But if you take out the first pick, then you're saying, okay, that's the headline, the little bit of that's kind of the surprising one.
Yeah, if you take a quarterback in the first round or with your first pick, it's look at what. Let's back up again. Look at the last two first round picks that the Rams had. They moved up. They traded a bunch of picks to go get Jared Goff, and he played in, towards the back third of his first season in the league. And very clearly, he was, from the moment he got here, he was the future. You went out and you got Jared Verse, who came in and made a major impact right away from the time that he got here. You're not putting a quarterback in the first round and then just putting him on. Look what the Falcons did. And I think that's actually, look, Matthew Stafford's a lot better than Kirk Cousins. He's better than Kirk Cousins ever was, ever will be. But it's kind of similar, right? You just redid it with your veteran aging quarterback who's still got some gas in the tank, but you also get this done. The second there's a bad game, the second there's, any sort of wobble, and let's be honest, the Rams have wobbled coming out of the gate 2 seasons in a row, there's going to be some noise. And I think that Sean McVay could certainly navigate the noise. I don't think he's going to let fans push him into a decision that he doesn't want to do, but it creates stuff. And like we've talked about for years here on Locked On Rams, Rams don't really do stuff. They don't do noisy. They don't do messy. They're a really clean operation that this guy's in this place to fill this role. And when it's time to move on, they move on. Go ask Todd Gurley. Go ask Cooper Kupp. But they don't have messiness on their roster at the same time very often. And a first-round quarterback would create a little bit of it's an interesting mess. It could potentially be a fun mess, but it would be a mess.
Yeah, and look, at some point, like you said, it's complicated. I mean, you do have to plan for life after Matthew Stafford, but I am of the belief of when you do get one of these truly generational type of all-pro level, top 10 all-time arm quarterbacks, is you go all in and then you worry about that when you get there. You build it up just to blow it up and go down the studs if you have to. Now, you don't do that with a mid-level quarterback or a very good quarterback. But when you have an elite quarterback that's won a Super Bowl for you, I think that's the approach that you should take. Now, I agree with you in the sense that, yeah, for me, it's, look, you really don't find star quarterbacks in free agency, and you'd have to find them in the draft, and the Rams kind of got lucky to pull this Matthew Stafford off. I would say lucky, but it was just the exception, not the rule, to be able to pull this off. And it worked out in their favor. And honestly, you can make the case it kind of worked out for both organizations based on their timelines. But I think that if I am the Rams, and look, Jalen Milroe, they met with him recently. I think that there's a chance this could all be a big smokescreen as far as taking a quarterback. Because I think when I look at the future of the quarterback position, Jared Goff was a really good quarterback, but he still wasn't good enough for the Rams. The Rams told us that they don't just want a good quarterback, they want an elite superstar quarterback. Can Jalen Milroe, Sheddeur Sanders, or Jaxson Dart be a superstar quarterback? In my opinion, I think the answer is no to that. So considering that, I just wouldn't take a quarterback with the number 26 pick because I don't think, one, he's that guy. And then two, your window with Matthew Stafford could literally be 1 year with Matthew Stafford, Devontae Adams. So I'm getting as much help as I can to help the 2025 Rams win a Super Bowl. So that's how I'm looking at it through that prism.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that you and I are seeing this the same way, that if there was a quarterback that you thought, you know what, this is our guy for the next 10 years, then you say blanket and you move heaven and earth to go do it. And you move into that spot and you take the guy and you put him on ice for a season, maybe two, and you just kind of go from there. I don't see that guy in this draft. I don't see, now here's the thing. Sometimes nobody sees these guys in the draft. If Les Snead is saying, I see one, and I'm just not telling anybody, or if all of a sudden, they move back into the second round and take a Jalen Milroe or whoever it is, then that's interesting. Maybe they see something that, a more of a layperson isn't necessarily able to seize upon. But I'm with you. None of these guys look to me like they're the future of your franchise. And like you also mentioned, the future of the franchise is almost always found in the draft. So I think that's where you got to look for it. The Rams hopefully aren't going to be bad enough to pick near the top of the draft where you usually have to go get these guys in the first place. So they're going to have to get creative in it. But I trust the people that are making the picks, and I don't think that there's anybody in this draft that you have to have. Now, maybe you take a flyer in the middle rounds on a guy that you hope can maybe turn into something, but I would like to see them take a pick that helps them win in 2025, not something that might help them be a better team in 2026 and beyond.
Yeah, if you had an upside play in the later rounds and let's say you traded back a little bit, we'll talk about that in the next segment, then absolutely I'm all for it. But I mean, like you said, I just don't think that guy exists. I mean, next year you have Arch Manning, right? You have names that are truly in the conversation of, okay, these could be a future top 10, 20 quarterback in this league. Got Nico Iamaleava they could draft next year. There's that as a possibility as well. Keep the hometown kid. By the way, did you see that? Did you see, I swear, guys, last time I talked about UCLA for probably like 2 years, but you see that UCLA's quarterback actually transferred to Tennessee, the Appalachian State transfer, Joey Aguilar. And people were comparing it, the Joey Aguilar and Nico Iamaleava switch to Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff switch. So they're saying it's kind of like the big switch right there.
Yes, I'm sure that both teams will be thinking the same thing very, very soon.
I didn't say I saw it somewhere. But coming up next, more storylines that you need to know about for the upcoming Thursday NFL draft. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox that you can turn any TV into your gaming entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices? No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Plus Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, and Avowed as you stream on your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. You can play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. And if you already have a console, a Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take you or your kids' games wherever you can plug in, right? So if you're a hardcore gamer, you're going to absolutely love this. This could be a game changer for sure. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On NFL to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max first and second generation, and Fire TV Cube third generation.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Okay, here in our third segment, we're going to continue talking about the storylines that you need to know about entering Thursday's draft. And I think, of course, one that you're prepared for as a Rams fan is, will the Rams trade back? Will it be F them picks? Will it be get more picks? I think that for this draft, just looking at it, they don't have as many superstars, right? I mean, you got Travis Hunter, who could go down, I think, as the best player in this draft. You got Abdul Carter, guys on that side of the football. Travis Hunter could be a receiver too, right? But I think you look at those guys as have some transcendent superstars potentially, but there's a lot of really good. There's a lot of quality, but there's not a lot of high-end superstar potential like we see in some of these drafts. So, I mean, the question is, would the Rams look to trade back, get more picks? I think if you go that route, as long as you're in the top 40 and you're stacking as many picks in the 33 to 127 range, I think that could be a move that's really interesting, especially considering how well the Rams have done in those rounds in previous years.
I think that's the key. I think you just nailed it. I think that the Rams have shown very clearly that they're pretty good at picking in the middle of the draft. They're phenomenal at picking at the back end of the draft. They found some, not just some guys that make the team, but guys that end up being starters and impact starters. And if there isn't a player that makes your socks roll up and down at 26, but there are, 2 or 3 guys between, like you said, Doug, between that point and maybe let's call it 45 or 50, and you can get your hands on a couple of those, I think that's a really interesting point. Would you rather have 2 of the top 50 or 1 of the top 26? Give me 2 of the top 50. That seems more interesting to me, more chances to find a player that can maybe impact your team in the short term. But I do think that if there's a guy you like last year, I think is a perfect example that, Jared Verse was kind of an obvious pick. Jared Verse was just kind of the best edge on the board by the time that it came around to them. They took him and he was freaking awesome, right? So if there's a guy that you think, look, this guy's just going to be a really good NFL player from the jump, then go get him. But if you're thinking, I can get the guy that I'm going to get is about the same as the guy I'm going to get at 39 or 46, then let's take 39 and 46 and get 2 of them as opposed to 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just taking, all these guys, you don't know how they're going to pan out. And the more lottery tickets you have to scratch off, the higher the odds you have, right? So I think that if they go 3-peat on this draft, right? The last couple drafts, they've really, really crushed it. If they do it again, it's a draft where hitting, especially in those rounds, could ultimately determine if they win the Super Bowl, right? It could take a top 10 roster, make it a top 5 roster.
Well, think about this year's draft, and it doesn't exactly work like this, but if you kind of want to make yourself, feel a little bit, the Rams, at least at this moment, as we sit here on April 22nd, don't have a second round pick because they traded it away to get Braden Fisk. Well, if you're just saying, well, we could get Braden Fisk this year, that's a slam dunk. That guy was phenomenal. So you got Verse and Fisk last year. Maybe Fisk you kind of have to think of as your second pick this year, but they're in a really good spot. If they can do something similar and find, look, if you find a star, great. If you find a starter, great. But if you can just find some depth, I know you and I have talked about some of the positions where it feels like they could, afford to have a few more options, namely maybe in the secondary. I think you really kind of have to lean in that direction. But they're really close. I know we've said this a lot, that they were the one team that kind of made Philly go, whoa, that was a little bit closer than we thought it might be. And, we've seen them when they get close. When they think they got a shot, they really go for it. And I think that's where they are in their timeline right now.
Totally agree. And it'll be fascinating to see what they do. But those are 2 you need to know right off the bat. Do they trade back? Do they draft a quarterback early? By the way, I don't know if you saw, just to prove I'm not biased or anything like that, did you see Aaron Donald was at USC's practice? He was at the Collie. He was visiting his old friend Eric Henderson. Of course, he coined the phrase dog work, and Aaron Donald was wearing a sweatshirt saying cats don't eat with dogs or something like that. So he was clearly into it. But yeah, I don't know if you saw that, but also, just Aaron Donald's been a little more active on Instagram. He's like the opposite of letting it go after retirement. My man's looking like more ripped than ever.
Dude, I saw him doing a bench press with 135-pound dumbbells, and it looked like they were made out of Nerf. They just throwing them around like they weren't real weights. I really do think, and I know this other like, oh, I really do think he could walk into an NFL game at any second and still dominate said NFL game. To your point, he looks like he just got done playing 5 seconds ago. If he's not even a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, a little bit leaner, he is an incredible specimen. And look, staying in shape like that for a reason, I don't know, maybe, who knows, right?
I think he's still only 33. You know what I mean? So yeah. Hey, until he's like 50. You know what I mean? Then we'll stop with the can Aaron Donald come back. As long as he's looking like that, looking as ripped as ever, doing, as you said, the one, I would need like 2 spotters on that. You know what I mean?
I don't think it's can he come back. I think it's does he want to come back, because I don't think anybody would be, no, man, he's been out of it. Look, that dude he still looks like the Hulk, and I'm sure he can still play like the Hulk.
That's why I like seeing him at USC's practice. I'm like, yeah, get around football. Get around the grass. Get around the cleats, man. Get around the pads, man. Yeah, the more you're around it. Let's see if something can just turn on in there that makes you want to just make a quick decision. But it was like when maybe Jordan was practicing with all of his teammates, you know?
Yeah, maybe he's not full anymore. Maybe that hunger is starting to come back a little bit. Who knows? He looked great. I don't think so, but I never say never, at least not yet.
For sure. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. Until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.